閂門唔該。
Please close the doors. Now we can continue with our hearing. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Timothy Tong, Barrister Wong, and also Ms. Hui. These two persons sitting beside you are your legal representatives. So you have to ask me for permission if you want to ask them questions. They cannot speak. They cannot speak to us. Legal advisor, can you explain to Mr. Tong when he's invited to come here what are the laws he can rely on? Now, when we invite witnesses to come to our public meetings, the witness is not protected by Cap 382, that is Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Those powers and privileges and exemptions would not cover these witnesses. Like Mr. Tong, if he's going to provide us with relevant documents, these documents are not protected by those powers and privileges under that particular ordinance. Any questions, Mr. Tong? Well, Chairman, before I respond to questions, can I make a short declaration? Well, you can ask questions concerning the ordinance we mentioned just now. Well, I would mention the related points. On the 13th of May, in the afternoon, I received an invitation to come here as a witness. I deeply understand the importance of the audit report, and it is related to the work of ICAC and the reputation of the anti-graft body. I want to point out that because I have not taken part in audit work in the past and I have not studied the relevant documents, yet I still hope that I can provide my assistance to the work of this committee. On the 17th or on the 14th, I asked the Secretariat certain questions, such as concerning the things that have to do. I was told that, also as the legal advisor mentioned just now, as a witness, when I attend this meeting, I am not protected by the Power and Privileges Ordinance. Yes, I understand that. And on the same day, that is on the 14th of May, I read in the news that the Department of Justice decided to start a criminal investigation into me. Chairman, the laws are fair and just, and everybody should enjoy his rights before the law. I cherish my rights, and I'm willing to take part in this meeting. And as long as my rights are not affected, I will try my best to provide information to you concerning the audit report. And Chairman, just now, as the public, I heard what the Director of Audit said, and also what the Commissioner of ICAC, Mr. Pei, said. And also Mr. Paul Chair also made a statement. With regard to these three statements, I would like to be given some time to respond. Can I do that? Yes. As for the audit report, I think the audit report is very important. With regard to CRD's work, the audit report made very detailed observations and also put forward recommendations. I have worked for the ICAC for 5 years. I agree to certain areas pointed out in the report. However, I also have some other observations. However, with regard to paragraph 3.21 to to 6 of the reports, that is about entertainment activities. I have been looking at these areas in the past few weeks, and Mr. Pei, the Commissioner, talked about a gray area, and Mr. Pei has also started a number of improvement measures. I think this is very important. It is because of the nature of work of the ICAC. I think these improvement measures are very important. Mr. Pei also made some other remarks, and I would like to tell you my observation on the points he made. In the past few years, like any other societies, Hong Kong has been undergoing significant changes. And one of the changes is that when it comes to face-to-face work or publicity on the internet or through other media, a balance should be struck. I'm not going into details about that. But when we can make use of the media or make use of other means to do publicity, we were trying our best to do that. That is, instead of face-to-face meetings. We have been working very hard in those areas. And also, when it comes to Operation Building Bright, the ICAC spent 3 years on promoting the scheme, and we worked with the district councils, and I believe you can also look into that area. And also, with regard to Mr. Porche's remarks, I think there's something very important. In the past 5 years, for ICAC's work, did it change its direction? If there was a change, why was there such a change? Was it because of a particular person? Was it because of the management? I didn't have much time to digest what Mr. Chair said just now. However, there were some plans that spanned over 10 years. When we look back at the period between 2003 and 2013, what happened in that period. Now, in the early 2000s, well, there was a huge drive internationally to promote fights against corruption, and we also set up the IAACA to do that. In the year 2006, that was a year that was influential to Hong Kong. In that year, China joined IAACA. Mr. Wong Yuk-man, I don't think there is need for Mr. Tong to make long speeches like this, because I think we only have limited time today. Now, just now he is talking about the audit reports and what the present commissioner said just now. So I don't think he should go into such details in his long speech now. Chairman, can you make a ruling? Well, Mr. Wong, I understand, but we have a witness here if he wants to speak. And, of course, later on we can ask questions, so we can let him speak, because he's not taking too much time. Well, first of all, he's very cooperative. He has come here. Maybe he really wants to tell us what's on his mind. And we will follow up on his remarks, but let us give him some more time. 1 minute, Mr. Chairman. Now, for anti-corruption work, other than doing that, the ICAC has also seen a lot of changes. Now, after the construction of the ICAC buildings, it was the first time that the 3 departments were grouped together. Now, ICAC has made a name internationally in fighting corruption, and now with our own building, we can have much more room for receiving guests from overseas, and we can have exchanges, etc. And also, for the IAACA, there is a mechanism of country review, and so after the ICACA was set up under the United Nations, there have been more exchanges among different countries. Now, if it is possible, please give us relevant documents. We will look at them. I'm a retired person, so maybe you can give me some time so that I can work on those documents. Yes, we would appreciate that. The first member who would like to ask questions is, well, first of all, members, is there any declaration of interest? Mr. Langsing. For ICAC, I have, well, I'm working for the Bank of China, and Bank of China has been working with ICAC in the past. I have also been invited by Mr. Tong to a dinner. Other members also attended, for example, Mr. Albert Chen. So I would like to point out that I attended one dinner. Yes, I remember there were other members there. Any other members would like to declare their interest? No? So the first member who would like to ask questions is Paul. Paul, you have 15 minutes. As for the other members, they have 10 minutes. But if you need longer time, I would handle it in a flexible manner. I would like to read out the list. Paul Chair, Mr. Leung, Mr. Chen Haken, Mr. Erlen Leung, Mr. Wong Yuk-man, Mr. Leung Sing. Paul? Thank you, Chairman. I believe a lot of members would like to ask questions on behalf of the citizens, but I do not want to look at those details first, and I would like to ask a fundamental question. Just now, Mr. Tong mentioned that in 2006, China acceded to the IAACA under the UN, and there have been changes to the ICAC afterwards. Now, for ICAC's authority, it is stated in the law, and also there are certain limitations. Mr. Tong? Mr. Tong? Now, if you want to talk to your legal representative, you have to seek my approval. So, yes, Chairman. Now, this is the first time that I act as a witness. Chairman, please give me a guideline. Well, because this is a very broad question. And this also involves the ICAC ordinance, including the terms of reference of the ICAC commissioner. So is it on all these appropriate, etc.? So, Chairman, can you give me some guidance? Well, how are these related to the content of the audit report? And should I be answering these questions? Mr. Poche, can you explain? Now we are looking at this value for money audit report. So can you tell us your position first, and then I will make a ruling? Yes, Chairman. Now we are talking about the Community Relations Department of the ICAC, and its authority clearly comes from Section 20G and H of the ICAC ordinance. And ICAC understands very well that there are certain functions that it has to play, and that's why it has set up the CLD. So when we look at the CLD's functions, we have to look at this piece of legislation first. Yes, Mr. Tong, it is like that. Can I ask my legal representatives? Yes, but each time before you do so, you have to seek my approval. Please do it as fast as possible.
Mr. Tong, Chairman. I've sought my counsel's advice. After members put the question, my thought is that the law stipulates the functions of the Commissioner, what is within the law the Commissioner has to do. But does it mean that the Commission can only do what is required within the law? I don't think my counsel can give me any specific advice. I don't think I can give you any specific answer here. But I feel, Mr. Chairman, that society and the world are changing. Let me cite an example. Now, when the ICAC legislation was enacted, they could anticipate all these changes. I've been with the ICAC for 5 years, and on this, I've been to the Legislative Council on more than one occasion regarding the report of the interception of telecommunications. Well, we affirm your work, but you don't have to answer anything and not to do with the question. Paul? Perhaps you might wish to put your next question. We'll follow up on that question later on. Mr. Tong, I don't think you should be unduly concerned that the members of the public may not be fully aware of the fundamental issues. We get these out of the way first before we put further questions. You don't have to be worried about your interests being prejudiced. This is not my intention at all. Now, I'd just like to set the scene a little bit here. The Community Relations Department has two divisions, one responsible for mass communication. In particular, the young people and the media, that's the work of Division 1. The second division has to do with the regional offices of the ICAC, and you also have the Hong Kong Mainland Liaison Office set up in recent years. You can confirm that, can you? Please, Mr. Tong. Well, the Honourable Member mentioned the Hong Kong Mainland Liaison Office in recent years. My understanding about the word recent is that it is not a recent happening. It happened quite some time ago. It was many years ago. I believe that it has been in place for many years. Mr. Chair, well, we're not, we're merely stating facts, Mr. Tong. For district work, a moment ago there was a brief introduction. There were visits, talks, and multifaceted activities and so on. They have been working very well over the years. Would you agree, Mr. Tong? Well, this is one of the areas of work of the ICAC, and it has been working well over the years. I mentioned the societal changes, and I believe that the Commission would keep an eye on the changes, and they would consult the relevant advisory committees. Mr. Chair, well, Mr. Tong probably would agree that if you refer to tables 5, 6, and 7 of the document, can you state the pages? Mr. Tong, have you got the report with you? Well, the Secretariat has kindly put together a table for our benefit. Perhaps the witness should be given a copy. But Paul, the witness has got a copy in front of him. Page 33 of the English version. I'm sure it's been tabled. Will the Secretary offer some assistance? Can't find it. Mr. Tong. Mr. Chair. Chairman. Mr. Tong, from this figure, you get to know that these figures range from 2008 to 2012, and in Figure 5 in terms of visits and talks and so on, and also Table 6, the multifaceted activities, Table 8, all the district activities with sponsorship. Now, from the Director of Audit's report, we have seen statistical decline. Would you agree with that?
Sorry.
Paul? Well, can you read out the figures? And many of us may not be aware of all these statistics. It would be very difficult for us to get to grips with the details otherwise. Thank you so much. If I may take a bit more of members' time. Table 5, talks, visits, and meetings. Now, from 2008, the number of people visited, 529 organizations reached, 31,324 people reached in 2008. Now, 2011, number of organizations reached 385, number of people reached 18,594, lowest ever over the years. You got that, Mr. Tong? Chairman, I can see that from the report. Will you explain that? Well, I'm leading the witness at the moment. I don't need an answer now. Mr. Tong, will you refer to the conclusion? A decrease from 2008 to 2012. We have seen a decrease of 31% in terms of number of talks, visits, and meetings, a drop of 26% in number of organizations reached, or a drop of 25% in number of people reached. You got the figures? Right, I can see the figures, Chairman. Also, multifaceted activities. In 2011, we have seen a decline. I don't really want to bore members with all the minute details here. You saw that, Mr. Tong? Yes. Mr. Tong, would you agree that in terms of resources, in terms of funding and actual expenditure over the past 5 years, we have seen an increase instead of a decrease? Yes, the figures show that. Bearing in mind what you said a moment ago, i.e. to tie in with the changes in society and resulting more to the web to reach out to more people, despite that, you have more resources devoted to you, and that would not undermine the work that you have always been doing. And you didn't have to divert the resources to other from the traditional areas to the new technology area. Mr. Tong, to answer this question, I'd like to go back to the report 3.6. The CRD told the Audit Commission 5 particular points. And for the sake of clarity, I'd like to mention them in brief. First, the nature, scale, and format of activities organized would affect the number of organizations and people reached. Mr. Tong, you don't have to read them out. Please offer your explanation. From the CRD information, we get to see that the CRD has deployed more resources to organize large-scale activities, including district and international activities, and have maximized the publicity benefits. What is worthy of note is that they have devoted a lot of resources to research and development for toolkits to be produced for various trades. And to explain the situation, I think the purpose is to propagate the message through reaching out to these people. In terms of deployment of resources, we have to consider how best we can reach out to the maximum number of people. And according to CRD, this is what they have been doing. Paragraph 5 mentioned the changes in cooperation format. I think the key thing is that we have to consider the lifestyle of the people of Hong Kong, the use of the internet and also mobile phones, and that will have a bearing on the work of the Commission. Mr. Chair, well, you can spend 2 more minutes, or I like to yield the floor to other people. Kenneth. Chairman, if I may refer members to paragraph 2 of the report, and that is the overall expenditure. $876 million, $120 million spent on the CRD. I've got a paper here, that is the breakdown of the total expenditure from 2003-04 to 2012 to 13, and that is page 18 of the document. Through the chair, Mr. Tong, have you got the document? Will the secretary offer some assistance, because they may not be familiar with the details. Appendix 9, Annex 9, page 18. Well, we're trying to help Mr. Tong to get hold of the information. Mr. Tong, Chairman, I hope that I would be able to take this opportunity to point out that the ICAC also made available the information to me. It was a day or so ago that I received the electronic version. I do have difficulties digesting all the information. Mr. Tong, it wasn't just you. We received the information almost at the same time. We spent an awful lot of time and expended a lot of efforts going through the information. So please try your best. Well, I'm working on my own. I don't have any office to support me. Mr. Leung. Well, we received the document at the same time. We didn't ask my staff to read through the paper for us. That's by way of clarification. Chairman, if I may refer members to this breakdown of the total annual expenditure by department. Now we get to see that for the expenditure, I'm referring to the tenure of Mr. Tong, 0708 through to 12 to 13. Now over this period of time, we get to see that there were 2 departments for which the expenditure has been increasing. The first one is the administration branch. I've done some arithmetic. Now we're talking about the time when Mr. Tong first became commissioner, 0708, annual increase in terms of ATM. That's under your responsibility, 14.3% increase year on year. CRD, there's administration branch. Yes. The increase is 14.3%. CRD, the annual expenditure, the rate of increase is 5.2%. Now, for these two departments, the rate of increase has been higher than the Corruption Prevention Department and Operations Department. And this is my observation. I'm not sure how Mr. Tong would interpret this himself. Mr. Tong, can we try your best to address the question? Well, Chairman, I can only try my best to answer this question in relation to the financial statistics. Now, we are talking about a lot of different organizations, a lot of different strategies in these different departments. If I don't have the opportunity to digest all these statistics and go back to the record, if I try to give a vague reply willy-nilly, I don't think it would be fair to myself and to the work of the committee. Now, behind all these figures, I may have some impression or some speculation after all these years. In 2008-09 to 2010, why is it that there has been such a sharp increase? Now, if you refer to 06-07 of the OPS and 12 to 13, now why is it that there is such a big gap? I don't think I can offer an explanation immediately. I think we have to have a look at the operation over the years and all the factors that came into play. And I don't think we can be talking about different items here. Mr. Leung, if Mr. Chung would like to have more time, I would appreciate that. But if you look at some historical figures, 03-04, the CRD or the CPD is or was an important department. Would you agree with that, Mr. Tong? Mr. Tong, all three departments are just as important. Kenneth. Now, administration branch, before you took office, Mr. Tong, it was a rather small unit in terms of expenditure. The CPD, each year, the expenditure has been higher than that for the ADM. 03-04, $44 million, whereas ADM, $28 million. That's the figure for 2003 and 4. Now, moving on to 08-09, ADM, the expenditure is spending or was spending more than the CPD, 46 billion for CPD, but ADM $48 million. My question then is this: anti-corruption work, can it be undertaken by the ADM? Now, for CPD, it seems to me that the resources devoted to the CPD has been lower. Mr. Tong, I don't propose to repeat myself, but basically I have to go back to the record for the information before I can give a complete reply. Can I make a couple of observations here first? In 2007-08, the CPD and ADM expenditures were similar. And I believe that the members would agree with that. And 06-07, the CPD had a higher expenditure, about 30-40%. 06-07, 07-08, between these 2 years, why is it that there was such a significant change, and why this continued over the years? One of the reasons, and I think I have to express my regret, the headquarters came into being. I remember very clear, not very clearly, but from my impression, the management of day-to-day management of headquarters represents a significant part of our work.
I also like to point out that in 0607 and 0708, as members pointed out, that was the first year I became the commissioner. According to my understanding, again, I don't have the opportunity to refer to the files concerned. I'm not 100% positive. But if a department needs to increase expenditure, there are three requirements. It would need to create posts, it would require funding and people. It's not a question of somebody who took up office in 2007 and then all this would happen. I'm sure the arrangements were already there in 2007, and it was only implemented a year later. I just want to make this observation for members' consideration. We needed to go to LIAW. Mr. Leung would like to ask you how you allocate the resources which have been allocated to you. Chairman, I understand that the ICAC will apply for, will bid for funding. My question is this: that is, it is for the commissioner and the other, heads of department to decide how the overall funding is allocated among the four departments. We know the broad figure. Well, the controlling officer is the commissioner. But it doesn't mean that after we've been given a sum of money, the commissioner can use it in any way he likes. And when we need to increase the resources, we have to go to the treasury. And every year, we would have to apply for more resources to those areas where we need additional resources. And we would need to apply to the Treasury, and ultimately we need approval from the FS, and we need to provide justification for that. And it's not, and I think the request of funding would be made after all the heads of departments have looked into it. Now, our question is, how do you allocate the funding that you have been given? It would be difficult for us to write a report if you simply tell us things that we already know. We want to find out the truth. We want to find out what were your thoughts or views at the time. My understanding is that in the light of the requirements of different departments, that is how much money would need to be spent by each department, and before it's being executed, we have to go through different stages of discussions, and then the ADM would then come up with a list which would take into consideration the requirements of the heads of the different departments. And based on that list, we would spend the money accordingly. Well, Chairman, in that case, I would request that for some information, that is, the expenditures, the breakdowns of the expenditures incurred by the ADM from 2007, 2008 to 2012 and 13. Because I'd like to know how the resources have been allocated. And I don't think Mr. Tong will have the opportunity to refer to the files of the ICAC again. I hope the current commissioner can give us the breakdowns of expenses incurred by the ADM from 2007 and 8 to 2012 and 13. I think the questions raised by the two members are similar. Your policies have changed when you took up the office, and both members are asking questions along the same direction. Next, Mr. Gary Chen. Thank you. As the audit report has pointed out, and also Mr. Pei has admitted earlier, that the expenditure on publicity has increased. The Commissioner also admitted that when the contact with the public and so on has gone down. So I'd like to focus my questions on the entertainment. I would like to go to pages 19 and 20 of our document, that is Gen 3, the item relating to expenditure of the ICAC, the major heads of expenditures and the relevant amounts. I note that there is, a subhead relating to publicity. I think it was about $11 million at the time Mr. Tong took up the post, and by the time Mr. Tong left the office, and the peak was in 2011, 2012, it has gone up to 17 million. In other words, at the time when Mr. Tong left the ICAC, the expenses on this item was very high. So I'd like to ask the witness whether or not you are aware that this amount went up from 11,800,000 and it shot up to 16 million by the time you departed from the office. Why has the figure shot up so much? Had you instructed the department to deploy more resources on publicity? Chairman. Likewise, if I had the opportunity to refer to the background papers, I would be able to give a more specific and concrete answers. I can only now rely on my recollection. I think that publicity is very important. During my term of office, when we discussed the subject of publicity, including publicity through local TV channels and the production of APIs and so on, I had participated in the planning and discussions because I believe in the power of the media. Even on different occasions I have heard, and even on a public occasion someone has stated that, how would people know about the work of the ICAC? Many people have actually heard of the work of the ICAC through, a docudrama produced 30-odd years ago. And from that, I realized how powerful the media was, and that's why I attach a lot of importance to the media. And if we did a good work in the area of publicity, certainly it's not just it's about the value of the ICAC, and that is we're able to disseminate our message effectively. Chairman, I also have one observation. I also take very seriously the ranking by Transparency International, and also the Heritage Foundation's comments about Hong Kong. And a lot of, I would not take up too much of members' time. We do have exchanges with international organizations, and because of such publicity, I think we have been able to disseminate the values of the ICAC effectively. Mr. Chen, according to the same table, you find that the expenditures by the same department, it was $85 million, and then it went up to 90-odd million when Mr. Tong left his office. If we look at the details as to how the $11 million was spent, I'd like to, from page 21 of Gen 3, I note that I can see the breakdown of the expenses on the entertainment. What I'm going to ask now is about the expenses on the entertainment, which comes under the head of general departmental expenses. Mr. Tong, could you refer to pages 21 and 23? It's the same document. Mr. Tong, you may refer to the document while Mr. Chen asks his question. Chairman, I'm asking a question relating to page 21 of Annex 10. I'd like to start with B, and you'll find that in 0607, the total expenses on it was 48,000, and then in 07 it went up to 62,000. The peak was 1112. It was during this period, the witness was the commissioner. Did he notice that the expenses on entertainment has shot up so much during this period? Did he make inquiries with the subordinates as to why the expenses have shot up by that much? Regarding the figures quoted by the member, that is from 2007-8 to 2011-12, perhaps the figures before and after that period also deserves our reference. Since I don't have the opportunity to look into the background files, I can only do my best to make an observation here. I thought that for each activity organized by the ICAC, there would be a justification, and also there would be detailed records. Even if we can't have access to the documents today, but the records are there, it will not disappear, and when the need and when necessary, they could be reviewed. So what I'd like to know is why we had so much expenses on entertainment in the year 2007-2008, and where did we spend the money? Mr. Tong, we are asking you the question. Don't put the question back to us. Please be more cooperative. If you can answer our question, fine. If you cannot answer the question, then just tell us, and don't, respond by asking us a question in return. You cannot, stall in this manner. Our time is very precious. I hope you will answer the question directly. That is, when you took up your office on July 1st, 2007, there was a change in policy, and you've put a lot of money into a particular department. 3 members are asking you the same question, but you are now putting the question back to members. Mr. Chen is being very patient with you, but I think if you respond in this manner, we will not be able to ask our questions. Chairman, I believe this may have to do, it was because this was a time when the ICAC headquarters was commissioned. Can you remember when the headquarters building was completed? Well, it was completed in 2007. We needed a period of time to gradually move in. I remember that we started moving in to the headquarters building in July, but the building was officially commissioned in December. So could you answer Mr. Chen's question? That is, could you answer the question relating in respect of pages 21 and 22? If you cannot, then we will look up all the relevant correspondence to find out the facts. Mr. Leung asked, why did this happen? Because we're talking about public funds here, and we need to, decide whether or not the money had been spent, properly according to the value for money criterion, and this is our duty. It would be best that you answer the question, but if you can't, we will still be able to go to the records. I think the figures drop again in 0809 because there are no particular items. 09 and 2010 and 2010 and 2011, one can see that the figures went up again. My guess is because this had to do with a series of international conferences that we had organized. But I'll need to check the records to determine which were those international conferences. I was still in office in 2011 and 2012. My recollection is that during that year there were major items, but not as many. While we are on the question of entertainment expenses, may I ask another follow-up question? The witness said that he may not be very clear about some of the broad figures, and if I may then ask the witness to go to page 95, which is about the stock of gentry, page 95, which is about the stock of wine at the Commission's office. Mr. Tong, can you find it? Page 94. Chairman, I believe the expenses on the stock of wine would be charged to the heading under entertainment expenses. If I refer to Annex 15, that is, ever since the witness became the commissioner, the amount of public funds spent on wine and alcoholic beverages have gone up a lot. In particular, the expenses on hard liquor. If we look at the table, before Mr. Tong became the commissioner, the amount spent on hard liquor was zero most of the time. I understand that according to the ICAC guidelines, it was very rare that the hard liquor would be served during these during meals, and you also admitted and according to the ICAC guidelines, such hard liquor were rarely served at dinners. Could the witness confirm that during your term of office, the amount spent on hard liquor was very high? Did you personally instruct your subordinates to buy such hard liquor, or was there a practical need for that? And could you elaborate on the reasons why there was such a practical need? Mr. Tong, you may seek my leave to consult with your legal advisor, because this may affect or it may prejudice the investigation that you'll be subject to. Chairman, that's exactly what I intended to do.
公平啲。
We need to be fair to the witness as well.
That
is a very pertinent question, and it's all in our report. It's absolute from the value for money perspective. So could you answer the question? Chairman, thank you for your guidance. After the commissioner of the ICAC headquarters building, the number of delegations coming to Hong Kong for exchanges and attending conferences had gone up. I don't have the specific figures, but every year we're talking about thousands from both overseas and from the mainland. I would like to point out that during these, there were many such receptions of visitors, and depending on the status of the visitors and the nature of the conferences or the meetings, the acquisition of alcoholic beverages would need to follow established procedures. I haven't read the documents, and I cannot explain to you the details regarding the approval procedure, but the acquisition of these alcoholic drinks were made depending in the light of the need for those receptions. My question is very simple. You became the commissioner on July 1st, 2007, and before and after that date. Mr. Chen asked a question, regarding the expenses on hard liquor before and after that period.
Chairman, well, before I assumed the post, I didn't know what happened in the 5 years or 10 years before I became the commissioner. And when I became the commissioner, because we were setting up the Center of Anti-Corruption Studies and also because of the commissioning of the headquarters building, so that's why we had to buy the alcohol. Well, I asked the witness a very clear question, that is whether he gave direct or indirect orders to his subordinates to buy this hard liquor. Well, he told us that he didn't remember the exact procedures, but did he directly or indirectly hint his subordinates to buy the alcohol? Do you want to answer this question? Chairman, I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer this question. Why is it not appropriate? Please seek my permission first if you want to ask your legal representative. Chairman, as I said at the beginning, I come here as a witness, and I know that this may have an implication on my criminal investigation, which has started. So now we are discussing these issues here. I wonder if these discussions may have an impact on my investigation. So because of this, I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer this question. Mr. Chen, we will handle this later during the break. Let's talk about this later. Well, Chairman, we have to face this issue now. Well, Paul, during the break, we will discuss this internally. Well, then I think we should take a break now because he's now refusing to answer the question. I'm the chairman now, so I'll decide as to when we will take a break. Well, Chairman, because we need to know whether the witness is going to answer this question. Well, during the break, we will handle this issue, Paul. We will take a break at 11. So we cannot just stop the meeting right now. A lot of people are waiting to ask questions. So if he refuses to answer a series of questions, then we will decide what to do. I don't think we should stop right now just because he refuses to answer one question. Mr. Chen, please continue. Thank you, Paul. I'm sorry, but we cannot interrupt the meeting like this. We will take a break at 11. Mr. Yee-lan now, please. Chairman, I've been trying to be very patient. I've been sitting here for 1 hour. From what I heard just now, that is only there are only very few things that I can write down, and I don't think I can hear any valid answers. I would like to ask Mr. Tong this. Does he understand why he's invited to this PAC meeting as the first witness? Because from the perspective of value for money, when you were in the office, the government, through the LIAW, granted funds to the ICAC, and from 07 to 08, it was 700 million. And when you left the office, it was 820 million. And within those 5 years when you were in office, the expenditure increased from 700 million to 820 million. That means that you almost used up all the fundings that were granted to your organization. So what is meant by value for money? That means when public money is allocated to your body, you have to meet certain policy objectives. Chapter 7 of the audit report is about prevention, education, and enlisting public support against corruption. And in Table 1 of this report, we can see that the CLD has contacted a number of OCs. Originally, there were 922, and when you left the office, there were 779. And if you look at Table 5, that is on page 32 of this report, there were talks and seminars and meetings conducted by the AC. When you first took up the office, there were 529 such organizations, and when you left the office, there were only 382 organizations. And for the number of people reached, originally there were 31,322, and when you left the office, it was 23,416. And when we look at Table 16, organizations and people reached by multifaceted activities. Number of activities, number of organizations reached, and number of people reached. Within your term, there was a drop each year. If you look at the number of people reached, now when you took up the office, that was 2008 was 450,000, and when you left the office was 440,000. And for Table 7, people reached by meet the public sessions. When you took up the office, the number of people reached and the number of sessions. Well, for the number of people reached, there was a slight increase. However, for the number of sessions, there was a drop. Table 8. Let's also look at Table 8. Community activities with sponsorship. When you took up the office, there were 38 activities that were sponsored, and when you left, there were only 20. Number of sponsors, when you took up the office, there were 38, and when you left the office, there were 22. Amount of sponsorship, when you took up the office, it was 3.7 million. When you left the office, it was only 0.9 million. So from these tables, these are actually objective code data. That is under your reign. The ICAC was allocated funds, and the funds increased year by year. And when it comes to preventive education, these figures tell us a lot of things. It seems that the number of activities and people reached dropped year by year. Now, you were the person in charge, you were the commissioner of the ICAC. That's why we are inviting you to come here as the first witness. Chairman, of course, the public's concern is our concern. So, was this money spent on buying Mao Toy? Was it spent on treating China's liaison officers to dinner? Was this money spent properly on preventive education, or you just used public money to build up your own personal network? Now we are looking at this from a value for money perspective. Now we gave you more money, so you should have done more. However, now you're going in the opposite direction. Yes, I understand what Mr. Tong is concerned about. As you answered Mr. Chen's last question, and under the urge of the chairman, you said that you have concerns on your mind because now you are under criminal investigation. Well, I don't accept that, because now you're trying to dodge all our questions. I don't think that is a good enough reason for dodging all these questions. The chairman has been fair. Now, in the beginning, through our legal advisor, it was pointed out clearly to Mr. Tong that he has a choice. And up to now, I don't think he has made the choice to give us more information. Now you are saying that you have to be mindful of your future criminal investigation, and you don't want the things you say will have an implication on what on the future criminal investigation. I think your legal representative can give you very clear advice concerning this. So, Chairman, I do not want to waste any more time. If we continue to ask questions like this, well, actually, I've told Mr. Tong what our objectives are. And these are totally within the frame of value for money. And Chairman, you said just now that at round 11, there will be a break. Well, can we make use of this time? And also, Mr. Tong can ask his legal representatives for further advice. Colleagues, now if we are giving him a choice, he can choose. Well, so we have to wait till all members have asked their questions. And if he's not cooperative, then he would have no more choice. Then we can make our choice. So at 11, when we take a break, we will decide. Now, because he needs to protect himself, but I also have to ensure the smooth running of this meeting. I have that responsibility. Mr. Leung explained to you very clearly that you have to answer our questions. If you do not want to answer our questions, we will have ways to make you answer. Also, we are doing everything in a transparent manner. So at 11, we will decide what our direction will be, because our time is precious. Mr. Tong, do you want to respond to Mr. Leung? Chairman? Thank you for allowing me to respond to what Mr. Leung said just now. There is a point that I cannot agree. Mr. Leung said that I am taking care of my own interests. That's why I'm not answering the questions, and that's why I am not providing information to members. And he does not agree that this is a justification. And I also cannot agree with Mr. Leung. When he spoke, he said that when I was in the office, I was trying to build my own network. So on this point, I totally disagree. I think this is an accusation. I don't think Mr. Leung accused you. He asked you questions. You have your right to answer these questions. Well, was I building my own network? I can tell you categorically that I did not. I was not doing that. I was promoting the work of the ICAC. And I have taken a lot of things into consideration. And about taking care of my own interests, well, anybody, including people coming to this meeting, well, of course, I come here because I respect the Legislative Council, and also I hope that I can provide useful information to you. However, I am also given rights under the law, and I should treasure these rights. Well, Mr. Leung asked you a number of questions. How about the drop in the number of people reached, etc.? You did have time to study this report, so can you answer this question first? And then after this, we will take a break. Well, for all those data, well, Mr. Chair and other members asked me a number of questions concerning those tables. For the development of an organization, well, for 5 years, there have been a lot of progresses, a lot of changes, manpower deployment changes, expenditure changes, etc. And also there were significant policy changes. Just now I talked about the interception ordinance, and this piece of legislation incurred a lot of expenses from our department. Well, we don't have to talk about the interception ordinance. We knew that you were the assistant to Mrs. Regina Eve at that time. Was she heading that task? No, that's not about interception. That was another task. But for the interception ordinance, let's talk about that order. Let's not talk about that ordinance. I just want to point out that the ICAC's work has been changing all the time, and we have to take care of a lot of areas. And also for Mr. Chen's question, yes, public money has to be spent very carefully. Mr. Leung pointed out that more than $100 million have been granted to us during those years, and did I spend all those money on Maotai? Well, for those 5 years that I was in office, and actually for 3 years, the expenditure exceeded the amount in the past by about 200,000, and from paragraphs 3.21 to 3.26, 2 events were pointed out, and about 100 people attended those events, and we spent a bit over $100,000 on that. So this cannot be compared to the amount of 100 million you mentioned. These were just 2 events. Mr. Tong, both Mr. Chair and Mr. Leung asked you questions, but these questions were not just about 2 events. We are talking about good governance, and a value for money audit is also about good governance. ICAC has been established for 39 years, and it has won international reputation. Now you are just talking about 1 or 2 events. Well, we will ask about those events later. However, the 4 members asked you questions from a macroscopic point of view. That is whether you understand the work of ICAC and whether you understand what your responsibilities were when you were the commissioner. These were the questions raised by members, and you are reluctant to answer these questions. Chairman, now if you are adopting that view, then maybe I will go beyond these reports. Now for the CLD, there is an advisory committee. I don't know if some members here are also members of that committee. Now for this advisory committee, it would review the work of the CLD each year. And also one of the subcommittees focused on publicity, including promotional activities. Well, although I do not have the background documents here, but I can also answer this question. That is about the policy. The policy was that we try to make use of the limited resources to do more work. We try to make use of all sorts of media. And also we will look at the needs of each trade. Well, you have talked about this for many times, Mr. Tong. Let's now take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and follow up. Oh, how about a 10-minute break? Chairman. Now, before we take that break, I would like to ask another question. Just now, Mr. Tong agreed that during his term, more than $100 million were granted to ICAC, and he didn't spend so much on entertainment. So where was the money spent? If you spent the money properly, we should be able to see the effect. Now, some members pointed out just now that there were problems with the establishments. Well, more money was given to the administration branch, and less resources were provided to the corruption prevention department, etc. So we cannot dodge such questions. So, of course, we will make a collective decision later. But for public hearing like this, I would try to be very fair to the witness, and I would tell the witness what I think. I hope Mr. Tong would understand this. My personal feeling is like this. If you are willing to come here to give evidence, of course I will welcome that. However, if you are just saying that you are willing, but your performance shows us that you are reluctant, then we will try to exercise our power provided under the Power and Privileges Ordinance. Mr. Leung, we will go on and talk about this.
Well, before we take a break, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear from the witness. In no uncertain terms as to whether he is not drinking the wine served on him, he's drinking the wine imposed on him. Well, we are being fair to the witness. We've given the witness some time, and Paul asked me to adjourn the meeting. Now, we have given sufficient time. We have to give the witness sufficient time, and I think I have to end this here for the time being. I think we have to deliberate by taking a break for 10 minutes, and let's come back and decide how we proceed. That the decision will be ours, not his. We have to bear in mind the value of money. We have spent quite a bit of time on this. Your turns next when we come back.